Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Buying gold and silver isn't crazy, but this is. Let's explore. Hopes and expectations. That is the war we face as stackers of silver and gold. Buyers, investors of the metals in various different ways and different forms can give us a lot of hopes. But you know what? There is the expectations that can be destroyed or shot down, so to speak, if it doesn't perform according to our hopes. One thing is for sure, we do have an historic record with gold and silver that is unmatched by any other monetary asset in world history. And these metals that you see before you here are an example of coins that may or may not have circulated in an earlier time, either as restrikes or circulating money in gold and silver. In various different compositions, by the way, but nonetheless, all definitely recognized, even today, if you were to hand one of these coins to somebody who has an inkling of knowledge of the transactions that had occurred in a previous age, well, they would recognize them as money. And they are of durability, fungibility, transmittability, divisibility. It's kind of what makes money what it is. And that's what gold and silver make up. It just so happens they're stamped with different designs and looks upon them. Gold and silver are metals that have stood the test of time. The fundamentals are very strong, no matter what the price does. And people can say and scratch their heads and question that philosophy because, well, the price has gone down, and the price can go down for a long period of time after being up for quite a while as well. And it makes us jaded, it makes us confused, especially when there's so much excitement like what we saw back in 2011. In fact, I would dare say this very community on YouTube, which is really kind of where it started. Yes, there were forums and the like, but when you have a video, when you have a moving picture, where you can showcase different pieces of what stacking is about, to be able to see and to be able to receive an education on a visual level, I think it gives a different perspective and it can really excite those who are interested in stacking precious metals. In fact, I would dare say that it was the beginnings of a community forming on YouTube in around 2008 that got me a renewed interest in precious metals. I had been stacking for quite a long time, before the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, stacking and collecting. But there was a period where I was kind of putting it away and noticed that the price really wasn't doing a whole lot. And I began to question, well, is this really worth it? The price is up and then they're down, but mostly trading sideways about those early 2000s. And after the attacks of 9/11, you wonder, if that doesn't if that's not a black swan event, I don't know what is. Well, and gold and silver traded sideways and even down since that period. But we march on and we see the price movement and we start to realize, what is price? Why does it matter in the grand scheme of things? And that's just it, the bigger picture. Many times we kind of get zoomed in on what the price of a particular object is, of any sort, but especially objects of this type. Objects that were utilized, in this particular case, as money in transactions throughout the ages. Well, gold and silver were just that, used in transactions. And the spot price behind these things are what determines their affordability or lack thereof. If things get too expensive, it may be more difficult to buy. But its value is maintained understanding that difference between price and value is paramount, because you can get into the weeds being zoomed in instead of taking a look at it from the big picture. And when you look at it from the big picture, you begin to really get an appreciation for what you have, not only in terms of accumulating pieces as small as a silver dime at a time. Maybe your budget didn't allow for stacking a full ounce or even a $50. We can grab a silver dime for 90 cents. At a particular time, that was about the average price, if not a little bit pricey, to get a silver dime for 90 cents. Nowadays, boy, that would be quite a bargain to get a silver dime for 90 cents. But nonetheless, given inflation and where things are today, you can still buy a silver dime. Or you can buy a $10 gold piece. The difference is quite vast between the two. But nonetheless, it is understanding that when you do look at the big picture through accumulating and stacking through a number of years, it all adds up. And it can add up to a fairly substantial pile of silver and gold. And that is the value that you appreciate and understand after you hold it for a long enough time. Because when you take a look at a coin that you can literally buy for 90 cents and now it costs about $2, that's an appreciation in price, but not an appreciation in value. And there is a difference. It's about wealth preservation, and that is the ultimate fundamental of what gold and silver represent. How does it achieve wealth preservation? Through the course of time and patience, and utilizing what I refer to as smart dollar cost averaging. And I've talked about that in a prior video. That's essentially where you buy more when the price is lower than usual, that is. And you buy less of it when the price is higher than usual. But it doesn't mean you stop buying, and it doesn't mean that you bust your budget in order to do so. In either case, you are using discretionary income in order to make these purchases. And yes, you can laser focus on stacking, but you stack based off of your comfortability. And there's times where I bought very little to my income ratio, very little. And, now it's a little bit more. It's all what you feel comfortable doing through the course of time. But nonetheless, it's never crazy to buy gold and silver under any circumstance, especially if you utilize this smart dollar cost averaging concept that I've talked about before. But the fundamentals of gold and silver are what drive the motivation, I believe, to stack. And what is that fundamental? The fundamental is that you will not make money on gold and silver in and of themselves. And the examples that you see before you here are not really money-making coins. They are essentially spending gold and silver. And a lot of it can be bought for near bullion prices. And everything you see here is fractional, less than an ounce. And so therefore, it is a way to accumulate on a budget. And it is something, when you accumulate a lot of something that's very small on a budget, it gives you a sense of satisfaction that you were fiscally responsible at the time of making these purchases. And it all adds up in the end. And it represents real transactions that have occurred in space and time gone by. Hence why you might see a coin that has a considerable amount of wear on it, such as you see here from this Victorian $50 from 1899 in Canada. There's a lot of history in spending silver and in spending gold, and I think that should be appreciated, and that's why I encourage folks to accumulate as part of their precious metals portfolio, as it were, to accumulate some of the older gold and silver coins. I think it gives you an appreciation that, though these aren't spent as money now, there was certainly a time when they were, and you can see it in the wear that is on the coins. It gives you an appreciation, nostalgia for times gone past when you could walk in and spend a very tiny gold coin or several silver coins to buy a good or service. And so buying silver isn't crazy. But you know what is crazy? What's crazy is what our monetary system is now. And it's been crazy for a long time, but it just seems to exacerbate itself with all of the printing that the United States government and other governments around the world are doing with these debt instruments. That's right. This is a debt instrument, and it is something that is continually used for transactions day by day. We do recognize it as money, and because people do have faith in it. And there's something to be said for that fiat designation. But by design, it loses value every year. It loses value every year. Think about that. The price doesn't change. It's still $1, but the value decreases. Whereas these, the price changes on these per ounce, but the value remains the same. Let me repeat that again. For these debt instruments, the price remains the same, but the value declines by design. Let that sink in for a moment. By design, at least when they're in control of it, it was 2 to 2.5%. Now it's to the tune of 5% as I record this video. These, well, the price of this, the metal that's contained therein, the price may go down. But the value remains the same over the course of time. Of course, that is something that still may not quite sink in or mean much to you if you have to sell. But I would say that given the light of what governments do, central banks do around the world, and that is to print their way out of money troubles, to constantly digitize and print money to lessen the value of it year over year, to me, that is crazy. And the other thing that's crazy is if you understand this, and if you have any sense of budgeting, it might be worth it for you to have a cushion of these debt instruments on the side in case of emergency so that you don't have to spend this. Or in other words, sell it and then take the proceeds from the sale of these in order to utilize it for an emergency. Those funds for an emergency. Because fiat currency is something that is failing year over year. In other words, it's falling in price or falling in value. And so if you don't have to sell, you shouldn't. And that is part of the key of buying and holding. HODL. Hold on for dear life in a sense, because this is your savings account. This is the last resort, in my view. The last resort in case of an emergency. Try your best to have a little cash on hand and stack maybe a little bit less of this so that you can have some of that cash on hand so that you don't have to sell. Because these precious metals are what is going to really preserve your wealth over the course of a long period of time. And we're talking maybe even decades. And much of what you see here, well, some of it was purchased decades ago. Others of it more recently. But nonetheless, it is a store of value. And I have no regrets buying it. And I hope you don't either. If you are just now getting interested in precious metals, and this may be one of the first videos you see, these are examples of coins you can buy that will hold their value over the course of time, and you can buy them with a relatively limited budget. Post your thoughts in the comment section below. We'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.